Last week, the financial media was very caught up in the interest rate reduction by the Federal Reserve. Everything was about that, talking heads, etc. 25 points, 50 points, and what are the implications of each? It just went on and on. And of course, you probably know that the Fed settled on a 50 rate reduction, 50 basis point rate reduction, and surprising a lot of people. So I will cover that from two perspectives, and then I want to talk about young men in the the workforce. Hi, my name is Ben Reppond. Welcome to my YouTube broadcast. Today is September 24th, 2024. Okay, I'm going to begin on this point on interest rate cuts. I found a good piece I'd share with you from Michelle McCory. She's interviewing Professor Steve Hanke, from the professor of applied economics at Johns Hopkins University. And he predicted, by the way, which very few did, he predicted a 50 basis point rate cut. Most were sticking with 25. But he talks about it, and I think he's somewhat critical of the Fed, and that's one point of view. And then I'm going to play Danielle DiMartino Booth following this and show you her perspective, and she takes the opposite view on it. So, but one of the things, and he or she plays a clip from Chairman Powell. And you watch this, you'll find it interesting. In the clip, this was following the announcement. It was his comments after the announcement. He said, I'll just paraphrase, he said, the economy's in good shape. Jobs are good, the businesses are doing well, etc. And I'm thinking to myself, that's a lie. Because number one, most businesses are not doing well. They're struggling. And if they were doing well, why is he cutting rates 50 basis points? That's signaling that there's trouble, that he needs to be aggressive in the rate cuts. And but he's pretty good. You know, he's kind of a politician, but he's not really an elected politician, really. And so, but you know, when politicians lie, you see what I see. And you can kind of tell, at least I can, most of the time, they're lying when they are. And but he's pretty good at it. He says all this with a straight face. But I don't think the data supports it. Now, there are people who believe that, he did this, it was political, he did it 2 months before the election to prop up the economy, whatever. I don't know about that. That may or may not be true. But it's just interesting to me that he took that approach. So anyway, take a listen to this combination of Professor Hanke and Chairman Powell.
Professor Hanke, good to have you with us. It's been too long. Welcome back.
Yes, great to be with you, Michelle.
All right, Professor, let's get into it. We had the first rate cut in 4 years since March of 2020, and by 50 basis points, which was perhaps more than what was expected. I know that you were calling for 50 basis points. I take it you weren't that surprised by that. But when Powell was asked what message this sends to the American people, here's what he had to say.
I would just say that, the U.S. economy is in a good place, and our decision today is designed to keep it there. More specifically, the economy is growing at a solid pace. Inflation is coming down closer to our 2% objective over time. And the labor market is still in solid shape. So our intention is really to maintain the strength that we currently see in the U.S. economy. And we'll do that by returning rates from their high level, which has really been, the purpose of which has been to get inflation under control. We're going to move those down over time to a more normal level over time.
So, Professor Hanke, what do you make of the move?
Well, it was anticipated by the markets, Michelle. The federal funds futures markets closed last night on the Chicago Mercantile Exchange, indicating there was about a 65% chance that they'd have a 50 basis point cut and a 35% chance that they'd have a 25%. So, and that had swung around from the 25 to 50 over the last 3 or 4 days. So that was pretty much priced into the market, and it happened as the market anticipated. And if you look at the market reaction, not much happened in the market. That's what I said was going to happen. I thought if they only did 25, since 50 was priced into the market would have sold off big time. But actually, the market really didn't do much of anything. The dollar didn't move much. It was just kind of quiet. Everyone really anticipated 50, and that's what they did. Now, the question is, listening to Powell, of course, his narrative is one in which he should have been wearing a halo while he delivered that remark in what I call the Fed spin room, because he's spinning the story, spinning a narrative, and the narrative is we're doing everything right and we're going to have a soft landing. The economy is going to remain pretty strong. Inflation is going to come down even lower than the 2.5% that it is right now, come down to 2%, the target. And everything's going to just be wonderful. The big problem is he's only talking about interest rates. Interest rates, that's what everybody talks about, interest rates. The
right.
Fed funds rate. It's a big deal, big story today. But interest rates say very little about monetary policy. Monetary policy is gauged by looking at what's happening to changes in the money supply, and precisely what's happened to changes in the money supply a long time ago. That's what affects what's going on in the market today. And if you look at what's happened in the United States since July of 2022, the stock of money in the United States has actually shrunk. And that's only happened 4 times in the United States since the Fed founding in 1913, the Fed was founded. And since then, there have only been 4 of these monetary contractions, and all of them led to recessions, including, of course, one big Great Depression. The contraction in 1929, 1933 in the money supply, we had the Great Depression. So that's why I think they are behind the curve. They're not ahead of the curve. He was implying they look at the daily data. They're on top of things. They're, bobbing and weaving. They know exactly what's going on. This is just baloney. They've contracted the monetary supply, and as a result, I think later this year, or maybe as late as the early part of next year, we'll enter a recession in the United States. And by the way, the inflation rate will keep coming down. It's at 2.5% now. John Greenwood and I predicted, using the quantity theory of money, that it would end the year between 2.5 and 3%. So I think we're going to be pretty close. And I think next year it'll continue going down, probably go below 2%.
Okay, next is a piece from Danielle DiMartino Booth. You probably know that she was on the Dallas Fed board and has written a book called Fed Up, very critical of the Fed. But I'm going to play a small piece here from her. It's interesting. She compares Chairman Powell to Paul Volcker. Well, Paul Volcker was, as you may know, a very independent thinker. He went against the grain, he went against the markets, and he did what was right, but it was painful because it cost us, the stock market, quite a bit during that period of time, and then it eventually recovered, and it was, in my opinion, looking back, the moves he made were the right moves. And so she kind of compares him to being a Volcker-like. And she uses the word defied. He defied the markets, Chairman Powell. And regardless of what they did, she says he did the right thing. Well, that's quite a comment coming from her because she's highly critical of him and of the Fed. But as she looks at it, she says this was the right move and will probably stimulate the economy. There's two sides to it. Was it needed? I don't think it was. But if she says, it's going to be maybe good for the market, and the market responded positively to that, and good for the economy, okay, we'll see. So she knows more about it than I do. She called it an exemplary move by Chairman Powell, the right thing to do. So take a listen to Danielle DiMartino Booth.
I am joined by Danielle DiMartino Booth of QI Research. Danielle, great to see you. What did you make of today's historic Fed Day?
Jack, it was historic for one reason. Prior to today, we have to go back for just a bit of background. Remember that Greenspan, Sebastian Malady, wrote his biography and characterized Greenspan as being intimidated by the stock market. So every morning at 7:30 in the morning in the Eccles building, Greenspan had to have his daily stock market briefing on his desk. And he never defied market pricing. He never shocked the markets, and he never went against when something had been fully priced in. Jay Powell broke the mold today. He took us back to the days of Paul Volcker, who was infamously did not care about the financial markets, did not care about bankers and what they wanted and what their profit incentives were. Rather, he cared about monetary policy and making it correctly, as stated on the Fed's website, quote unquote, for the public good. And that's what Jay Powell did today. Prior to this, we had never seen the Fed raise or cut had the probability for doing so been below 79.8%. And that's actually a hard figure. And yet today we went into this meeting with about 59% probability priced in for a 50 basis point cut. Any of his three predecessors would have gone the way expected of the 95 out of 114 economists surveyed who said 25 basis points. Your friend and mine, George Goncalves, who will be at this dinner with us shortly, he was one of two big banks, including JP Morgan Chase, Michael Feroli over there, only two big banks calling for 50 basis point rate cut, which was the right thing to do, but they were in a tiny, tiny minority. And today, he's not as tall as Paul Volcker, but he stepped into his shoes, Jack, and he defied the markets. And I think that is absolutely exemplary on his part for having done so.
This was something I thought, I want to show this to you. This is a special featured clip, I guess, or featured presentation by CNBC. And I thought it was really good. It was about why young men between 25 and 54, which is the prime working years, why are they working less and less? And they're in that age group, 25 to 54, 13.7% of young men are not working. Now, are some of them unable to work? Some of them, their skills are outdated and they have not gone back to school and gotten that. Some have inadequate education. And there, and I know, there are some of them that are staying home in their basement playing video games. And some of them are getting stimulus money and living off that, or unemployment. In other words, they're making ends meet one way or the other, and basically don't have to work. So if you know small businesses, small business owners, they will tell you it's hard to find help. A lot of them, especially in the construction trades, very hard to find help or good help. And some of them have scaled back. I know some business owners here who have scaled back, like in the construction trades, have scaled back to the point where the owner is doing it and no help. Maybe he has one guy working, but the crew that he used to have, he can't do that anymore. So, and that's just a function that a few of them either aren't able to work or they don't want to work, or they're incentivized not to work. Lack of incentives, lack of education or updated education, and probably somewhat motivation. So I'm just going to play a segment of it. I think you'd find it interesting. It tells a story about where we are right now.
Men have been steadily dropping out of the workforce, especially men aged 25 to 54, who are often considered to be in their prime working years. As of August 2024, 13.7% of prime age men were not working, compared to just 7.2% in 1954.
The long-term decline in labor force participation by so-called prime age men is a tremendous worry for our society, for our economy, and probably also for our political system.
There's a surplus of prime age workers who could be working and aren't, and that's this puzzling problem.
The unemployment rate for prime age working men sat at 3.4% in August 2024. This number primarily includes those who are unemployed and looking for a job. But about 10.5% of men in their prime working years, or roughly 6.8 million men nationwide, are neither working nor looking for employment, compared to just 2.5% in 1954.
What's surprising is it's not a COVID phenomenon, it's not a recession phenomenon.
And for every prime age man who is unemployed and looking for a job, there are more than 3, and some years 4, who are neither working nor looking for work.
So what's driving men out of the workforce? And if left unchecked, what impact will it have on the US economy? Nearly half of prime age men out of the workforce cited obsolete skills, lack of education and training, poor work record, or security issues as a reason preventing them from work.
Education is a very important predictor of a prime age man's odds of being out of the labor force.
The big impacts are on the non-college educated groups on their ability to enter and stay in the labor market.
Men who are not college educated leave the workforce at higher rates than men who are. At the same time, fewer younger men have been enrolling in college over the past decade.
If you look at the geography of where the most prime age men out of the labor force are in particular, they tend to be in places that have experienced manufacturing declines. They used to graduate with a high school education and have good, stable jobs. They weren't glamorous jobs. They were, automobile factories, sometimes mines, other manufacturing jobs, but they were respected, they were stable, and they could support a family. Since then, due to technology-driven growth, a little bit due to Chinese competition, you've had a lot of manufacturing firms and the places where they were located that were one-horse towns become ghost lands, right?
Okay, well, maybe I should have played this last week, but I'm going to play it. So here are the bulls, bull side of the market. I'm putting it all on rate cut, or maybe a bigger rate cut. The bulls wanted a bigger rate cut, and they got that. And the bull side of the market on Thursday and Friday Thursday especially, responded accordingly. So we'll see where that rate cut goes. But and by the way, they're expecting another rate cut of 25 basis points, supposedly, before the end of the year. Okay, thank you for watching. If you have questions or comments, leave them in the comment section below.